Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta.
And welcome to another edition of Chinakya, Part 10. Today we want to discuss this material world again and the spiritual world. This prison house of the material world. So those of you that have been fortunate enough to be able to get out of the cities in the country, you may have noticed sometimes on a very calm day, look, there's a huge lake, and in the lake, if you look at the lake, all the trees and whatever are on the edge of the lake. Behind the lake is reflected in the water. So you'll get two pictures. The true picture on the land, and then the reflection in the water, which is upside down. So that is the way this whole material and the spiritual world is set up. This material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. The reality is there in the spiritual world. This is the shadow, the reflection, which is in the material world and is not real in that sense because it's not eternal. It's only temporary. So those of us who are stuck in this material world, we can get out, of course. So the prison house of the material world doesn't have visible bars like a prison house in jail. What are the bars, or what are the shackles that keep us in this material world, in this illusion? And for that answer, we can consult basically any scripture. And they all say the same thing. Woman, the female form, that is the shackles that keep man in this material world. Shackled to this material world. Stupefied, so they cannot think about the eternal world. And all those questions that need answers when we're in the human form of life. Samson and Delilah. There are so many examples in scriptures of how men are weakened by women. Their spiritual acumen is destroyed by association with women. And therefore, celibacy is also stressed in all scriptures, all bona fide scriptures. In particular, of course, the Vedas, which are the reservoir of all scriptures. So, the Queen, the UK, Europe, the Western world have done so much disservice to mankind by liberating women. So the men have become so weak, they could not control the women, or they lost the desire to understand God. So that's what Kali Yuga is all about. Enjoying the senses. Never mind any marriage vows. Now we're worshipping the incredibly ridiculous superstars, the sports heroes, the cinema heroes. Rather than worship those people or respect and admire those people that have the least sex, who have the most control, we have become so twisted, the perverted reflection, we become so perverted, now we honoring and worshipping the biggest fools who have the most sex and the most heinous lifestyle, hedonistic lifestyle. That's the state of affairs that we've come to in this material world. And then we get this ridiculous queen refusing to abdicate, to step down in favor of her son. This kind of nonsense going on in Kali Yuga. The women are now so proud, marching down the road with their miniskirts and everything hanging out. They even go so far as, this world has become, the Western world in particular, has just become a world of weak, masturbating men. When a woman is innocent, she's unaware of her power over men, but God has given that power to women. It's not their particular power that they should be proud of. God has given them that power. Why? To keep men transfixed in the material world, and therefore they won't bother God. They stay here in this material world, go on to become animals. But all these desires that men have, they can be satisfied more in an animal body. In the human form of life, there's bound to be some restrictions. For example, a dog can be seen mating in the street. But if a man and woman do that in the human form, people will object. Naturally, and rightfully so. Or monkeys have very avid sex life. You see them jumping from one female to the other. So rather be a monkey or a dog if a person wants to have excessive sex life. So God said, okay, fine. Man proposes, God disposes. You want unlimited sex life? This human body is very limited. Women are in the subjective position. They could have sex many, many times. But man, one or two times, he's very fatigued. Unless, of course, starts filling up his body with chemicals and this and that to increase his prowess, his animal prowess. Oh, much nonsense going on in Kali Yuga in the name of enjoyment. So, this is nonsense. Men have to be protected. The man is actually, men are unaware of their higher power. Man has more potential for understanding God. Women have both feet planted in this material world. This is their playground. Women are very confident. It's like this, and you do this, you do that. The men, these days, most of the men giving the money, all their money to the woman to control. They're asking the woman, what should we do now, dear? In France, oh, mademoiselle, elle est belle. I want to kick their faces for being so weak and nonsense. How did the world ever come to this? Kali Yuga. Every dog has his day, and Kali Yuga is the day for all the lowest born people. Those things that are in the mind that normally people never reveal. Now it's all coming out. People are following their minds. Their minds are degrading them, and that is the function of the mind. People call it the devil. But as we said herein before, the devil is actually working for God. He's testing us to gauge our spiritual advancement, to gauge our dedication. We're not bluffing. We're trying to cheat our way into the spiritual world. No. We'll be checked at every step. We'll be monitored. So, man has become so weak And women have become so strong. Recently I saw in one interview on this cage fighting, one woman was saying, "Oh yes, before I fight, I have as much sex as I can, and it makes me very strong." Yeah, because the man is carrying the seed. The semina is very powerful. Now men are giving all that power to the women. That semina, one drop of semina requires over 60 drops of blood to produce. That semina has to have so much potency to carry those spermatozoa, to fertilize and to give life to that new birth, that new embryo. So, men have no idea, no education. You know, men are so weak, they come up with these ridiculous jokes and so on to cover over their weakness. Yeah, I saw what in one newspaper said 95% of men masturbate, admit they masturbate, the other 5% are liars. So this, like saying, yeah, it's okay, it's fine, it's fine. Masturbation is degrading. Self-sex. It's degrading, it's also sex. You're losing your manhood. That spermatozoa must go to the brain, to fertilize the brain, to make the brain strong for understanding the higher conceptions of spiritual eternal life that we should be inquiring about in the human form of life. God has given man dominion over the animals, not to become the biggest animal. We're supposed to become civilized and better than animals, not worse, the biggest animal, and become the biggest predator, eat the other animals. This is all nonsense. People are so lost and misdirected, these rascals. But now is the time. We can turn this thing around. Like one famous politician. Yes, we can, but he couldn't. But we can if we actually get together. Forget all these religions and get together and have some power. Then we can influence the government and wrest the control of this demoniac countries, out of the hands of the demons who are only self-interested and just get in there long enough to get their hands in the till and fill up their pockets, ensure that they have a good life. Never mind what happens to the rest. Never mind, oh yeah, let the women go free, do any sexual activity on TV. As long as it brings in the money, it doesn't matter if it ruins the population. The men are ruined. They're masturbating from a very young age, which means they become so dull-headed, become the puppets of women. And the irony of it is that it's the man's fault. It's not the woman's fault. The woman is normally subordinate to man. Men have encouraged this nonsense freedom of women. I remember in high school, the girls sometimes would ask us, well, when you get married, do you want to marry a virgin? You would only marry a virgin? And we'd say, oh, no. Why? Because we want to exploit them. But like one lady in India, I saw on TV on one occasion, she said, the men want to kiss all the girls, but when it comes time to marrying one, they want the one that hasn't been kissed, which is true. Why would a man marry a woman that's already been soiled by so many others, more or less like a prostitute. How is she ever going to be a good mother? Or how can you trust her that she's going to stay in this relationship? She's going to divorce you as soon as she becomes attracted to another man sexually, to ruin the children's lives, break up the whole arrangement, and she'll be gone with your money. Even the leaders are so befuddled in this uxoria, this over-fondness of women. If there's some incident reported, 911, my husband's beating me or something's going on, the Keystone Cops are falling all over themselves to rush there to protect this woman. And whatever she says is the absolute truth, and whatever the man says, forget it. That's the terrible state that the world has fallen into. They think protecting women means to mash someone's face that looked at your wife. Protecting women means keeping them under control so they cannot degrade themselves, degrade their families, degrade the countries, and ruin the world. People look at the Muslim ladies all covered up, which is wonderful, because why? They're keeping themselves, no one but the husband should see the woman, his wife, naked or even semi-naked. Now these Western women parading about, they're so proud of their freedom. They even have slut walk. Sluts walking on the superhighway to hell. But men have allowed them to do that. They're so proud that they're free from men. But look at their freedom, what they're doing with their freedom. They cannot handle freedom. It's just straight down degradation. Without having some male control. It's like all this problem like in England. Every young girl from the age of 8 years old, she knows all she has to do, get one child from anyone, and she's set up for life. The government will pay everything. So that's what they do in many cases. Then they can have as many boyfriends as they want and get money from the government for their apartment, for their food, everything's paid for. It's just like madness. Women are lost, men are lost, everyone's lost in Kali Yuga. There's no understanding of anything. It's just like an animal. Get while you can today. Tomorrow's another day. But even animals are not as greedy as human beings. If we have a sack of rice here, a bird will come and take what he needs and go away, but a human being will come and steal the whole sack and store it up. Steal another one, take more than his quota. This is greed. The big animals stealing from the small animals, like in Africa. People grow up very hard, very rough. If the small children have something, the big children come along and just grab it out of their hands. Survival of the fittest, that's animal life. So a time to become civilized. Start to understand what this great God is saying to us. Get out of this degradation. How can you have any dignity? How can you have any self-respect? The more we follow these laws of God, the more bliss and pure inner contentment we will have. because we know we can leave this body at any time and our future is bright. Whereas others, what is the end result of all this degradation? Suicide, drug rehab, broken marriages, crazy children. Nothing wonderful. So please try to understand, accept this knowledge, and make use of this human form of life. Thank you very much.